All right, welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 48, and with us is Ryan Haack, the host of the Far-Fetched Storytelling Podcast, the creator of the webcomic The Unspeakable Text, and the acclaimed writer and creator of BRIC-A-BRAC, a fantasy Christmas story, which is now live on Indiegogo as we speak, and we'll talk about that. So, Ryan, thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to talk all things BRIC-A-BRAC with you.
Absolutely, it's an honor. Yeah, it's an honor to be on, and thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. And we're just talking before we kind of went on the air a bit about your T-shirt. So that's your theme there. It's your characters of
right.
Brickerback.
The cover of issue 2. This is the cover. Yep.
And you have, so this is issue 2, and you will be coming out with. I heard in one of your previous interviews, your story arc is going to be 3 issues. Correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
3 issues.
All right.
Yep.
All right. And they're all. Then you have the. Do you have like it all scripted out too? Like issue 3 is scripted out as well?
Yeah, so. I know exactly where we're going to go. And it's all scripted out. But again, with crowdfunding and, the paid, I think that, it's nice to have all the pages laid out, but sometimes you have to make compromises in the pages. Sometimes, there's a lot of things that happen. So, but it's all scripted out and stuff like that. So.
And you had some really good points, and we'll talk about in a little bit about, how you go about crowdfunding, which is I find a little bit innovative compared to some other folks, and also talking a little bit about what your process is. Before we jump in though, just for the sake of our viewers and listeners out there, do you want to first kind of give people a little bit of a background on how you got into writing and creating?
For sure. So I really got smitten by, as Todd McFarlane says, smitten by he always says that, but smitten by comic books when I was like 13 or 14, and this was the New 52 era comic books. So I really got into those, and I think that's really, I got into them late. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really have any exposure to them before, but the appeal is that they're really, really fun, and you can basically go anywhere with them. I love telling stories where there's no limits. In film, there are limits. In prose, there aren't limits, but there's the lack of. And I do tell prose stories, but there's comic books. Just really, you can go anywhere. If you can draw, you can do it. And so that kind of drew me towards comic books and taking it seriously as something I could do. And so that's why I've kind of created independent comics and stuff like that. And so crowdfunding just seemed like an obvious thing, because you obviously need to get the funds to make something, and then you also want an audience to kind of experience it and be able to hold it in their hands and look at it. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It's kind of the best deal you can get right now if you want to tell stories tell comic book stories. And I tried knocking on DC and Marvel's door a long time ago. I tried, when I first got into college, I remember trying to call, I actually managed to call Jeff Johns' assistant once. And I kept calling the DC offices like every single day. And this was like 3 years ago. I just kept calling and kept calling. I got Jeff Johns' office assistant. I was like, does Jeff Johns need an assistant? I can go down to Burbank, and it didn't work out, obviously. I would call Marvel too. And then I think I called Oni Press once, and they were like, you can't call us, don't call us. And that kind of, I was like disenchanted. I was like, okay, this isn't working clearly. So that was really why I made my foray into independent comics too, is because, there aren't any doors opening for me in these publishing things. So I'm going to have to do it myself. And that comes with a lot of challenges, obviously. If I'm doing the finances, getting all these things figured out, but it is worth it. And it's really great to, accumulate fans. And that's where I am now, pretty much.
You did mention, as you talked about, that you mentioned in a one of your and just for the viewers and listeners out there, Ryan also has a really good YouTube channel to check out, and you mentioned in there that you said to get that, for independent comic writers and creators, is to get out of this, you called it like an 80s and 90s mentality. And do you want to kind of explain exactly, is that what you're referring to about having to, reach out to publishers in order to
Yes.
tell your story?
Yeah, because I know that I think I know what you're talking about. The idea of people thinking that they can in the 80s and 90s thinking, well, obviously you can submit to editors and go to Comic Cons, and there's this due process that could potentially work for you, and it worked for a lot of people who got in. But now, obviously, things are much more complicated, and you don't get to meet editors at comic book conventions. It's a lot harder to do that. In fact, it's just not going to happen. You can't submit anymore. Marvel doesn't let you submit anymore. DC won't let you submit. You have to know people to get in. You have to do all these things to break in. And I think really I came to the conclusion early on, thankfully, because I really kept knocking at the door all the time. I came to the conclusion that really you need to, the idea is just to go independent. And I think that's a really great thing, because independent comics, in the last couple of years have really boomed, I think. There's been a lot of, in the last year, there's been some massive campaigns, where it be Earthworm Jim, or just things on Kickstarter, or, making $1 million with Berserker, the Keanu Reeves thing. And I know that has a big star attached to it, but still, I mean, this is a independent okay, not technically independent, but still it's a crowdfunding book that makes a huge amount of noise and gets over $1 million. So I think clearly something is going on, and a lot of eyes are going towards independent crowdfunding sites. And so it just seemed like that was the appropriate thing to do if I wanted to continue doing comics, was I'm going to have to go this route. And I love comics, but I also realized at that point that I have to diversify my palette as well, make films or do podcasts or do prose as well. Because I think you have to have a talent stack. If you really want to be an effective creator, you can't just have one eye on one prize, because that doubles your chances of really not getting that prize. And so, yeah, basically what I was talking about with that before, though, about the comics in the 90s and the 80s mentality, is just that I think that people still, and I run into people who think, oh, I just need to send my samples to Marvel or DC or Image. And it's just not going to happen. Even if you have some of the best samples in the world, I really doubt Image Comics will publish it, because what you don't understand is they're not paying you to finish it. You have to finish it. You have to fund all of it, the lettering and all of that. They're just going to publish it. A lot of people don't quite understand the whole Image thing. They think that, oh, they're going to pay you to finish it. That's not true. You have to finish it. And that goes for all these other publishers too, even the small ones like Boom Studios or Dark Horse, or there's Alterna, or you have to finish it. Yeah, IDW. You have to finish it. They're not gonna, So that's why crowdfunding is the most appealing thing. And to anyone who's a creator, I think you should use it.
Yeah, and as you're mentioning in a previous interview, it's free. I mean, they right. Like Kickstarter and Indiegogo will take a chunk afterwards, but putting it out there it's free, and and I've heard it in a previous interview saying, and it's also like free market research, right? Too, you can kind of understand how it's working. So talk to us a bit about Brickerback. This is not your, as you said, issue number 2. I love this story. So it's, and when we were talking before we went on the air that basically Christmas stories and Christmas themed stories always, in a way, it's like it kind of has its own kind of take and spin on it. What I like about this is that you actually mentioned that this is almost you called it also like a space opera in a way. And so talk to this is I'm just excited to talk to you about Bric-A-Brac.
For sure.
Tell us, give our viewers and listeners kind of a background a bit on the storyline, and then talk to us how you came up with the idea of this story.
Yeah. So the storyline is very simply about a war going on a planet Christmas, a war, kind of a dispute going on. So there is the Nutcrackers are basically going after a resource on the planet. for nefarious reasons that we'll kind of get into in issue 2. And this involves kind of the intergalactic stuff, outside people influencing them to do this and manipulating them to do this. But either way, the Nutcrackers are taking over the planet, and they're taking over villages and and finding Christmas spirit, which is a resource that kind of accumulates underneath the planet. And it's kind of like the Force, or it's kind of like a like a resource that when people are happy and celebrating Christmas, it just accumulates. And it's very valuable to people who are outside of Planet Christmas. They can use it as fuel. They can use it as this or this or this. And that's why the Nutcrackers are getting it for other people, right? So this is basically the start of the war, and we follow a main character named Garrett, whose home is attacked. Now, all the children of Planet Christmas, or at least a large majority, have been taken to this small island called Sugar Plum Cove, and they're being taken care of by these fairy godmothers, basically. But at the beginning of the first issue, the Nutcrackers take over this place because, of course, there's kids. The kids all believe in Santa Claus. They celebrate Christmas and they love it. So there's a mass amount of Christmas spirit underneath that place. So clearly they would want to go there. And so Garrett's friends are kidnapped, and his mother figures are kidnapped. And to make everything right, he feels as though he needs to find Father Christmas. And so he embarks on this massive journey to find Father Christmas, and he meets all these characters along the way. Hopefully he'll succeed. He is in over his head, and he's very young, but luckily he does have a friend in Marie, who's going to help him out and, get him to that goal, supposedly. So that's basically the main plot as it stands right now. Obviously with issue 2, things will change, and, characters will reveal themselves and certain things like that. But, that's basically the plot right now. And to answer the second question you asked about what was the origin of this, how did this kind of come to be? Largely a fan of Rankin Bass. I'm a huge fan of the Rankin Bass movies. I've talked about this a lot, but it's just hard not to, because those movies are amazing. The songs are incredible, with Rudolph, but not just Rudolph. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, or of course, The Year Without a Santa Claus, or The Little Drummer Boy, or the list goes on and on and on. And a lot of great Christmas specials, The Polar Express, or I'm grabbing from all these different things to kind of make an amalgam, mashing together things that are familiar yet different, flipping things that are familiar on their head. So taking things from the Nutcracker Ballet, the Nutcrackers are usually the heroes, right? Well, they're not now, they're the enemies. And so it's basically the idea, and it's embracing the name of the story, Brickerback, by just taking all these items that really shouldn't be together, have no business being together, and kind of mashing them together and seeing what it comes out to be, and fully realizing it and taking it seriously. Planet Christmas has beaches, it has different locations, it's a fully realized world, it has an underwater civilization. So it is a really fully fleshed out world, and that's basically the idea of how it came to be. And finding the artist was really the real kind of giving us the gas to make it happen. You can have all these great ideas, but if you don't have an artist like I have with Raphael and Tom and Milton, who are all contributing to this issue, it wouldn't work. It would never work. The Raphael is the glue that really fits all of this together. You can talk about it, and Frank Baum has talked about it, obviously, in the life and times of Father or Santa Claus, and there's these great stories that kind of try to create this world, this amalgam, but to actually put it into comic book form is just I feel like Raphael is the only person who could do it, really.
So talk to us about, you just mentioned there about, there's, different aspects in Planet Christmas. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm really curious because you do a lot of writing. You do a lot of writing of, prose work. You said you do a lot of scripts. So give us, help us out a bit with like the world building aspect of it. How did you create Planet Christmas? And as like a fan of Christmas, is like, what's the connect? Is there a connection? Is this connected at all to like, say, like Earth, or is this its own separation altogether?
Yeah, it is separated from Earth.
Okay.
And that's another thing where it's a different Christmas story in that aspect. There's
All
not,
right.
I mean, there are humans. It's kind of like a Star Wars world where, there are humans and they have the likeness of humans, but they really, they're just not, humans. Kind of like a Luke Skywalker. He's not humanoid. That's not his species.
Right.
He just is. So with that, I would just say that, no, it's not Earth, but the attempt to just make a fully realized world, I think it helps people get into the fantasy. Like, I've never really seen a Christmas story go into fantasy as much as this one does, because we really don't have to explain why there's dragons. Okay, we don't have to explain why there's like all these strange characters, like a spider snowman, or these golem creatures, or this. We don't really need to explain where they come from. I think it's just expected in fantasy worlds that these things exist. And so I think kind of making it a fully realized world, I hope it's believable to people that we can have these things in it, because we do go crazy, why not? And we have a scene in, the Christmas Village, where we have dragons and spiders and stuff of that nature. And then, of course, every time that there's massive battles, it's a bunch of people, the Nutcrackers versus a lot of people who are the foot soldiers and the militia of Christmasville, who basically are the only group of people who are even attempting to fight the Nutcrackers at this point, because they're so powerful. Those people are full of different characters like cats and all these things. But I think that because it's a fantasy world, because it's not Earth, this is really believable. I think there's always that weird dissonance where kids, where Santa Claus or elves or creatures, like, for example, the Christmas Chronicles movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but the one that came out like a couple years ago. I think it's a great movie, but there's always that leap of faith you have to take with, the Polar Express is a good one too. Like, you are in a normal earthly world, and then suddenly the train comes through, this magical train comes through, and it promises to take you to the North Pole. Or there's, in the Christmas Chronicles, they find out that Santa Claus is real all of a sudden. Everything is normal, and then they find out he's real. That it's hard to make that leap. So I figured, why not just make it a Planet Christmas and make these things exist already and have fun with it and just kind of go bananas. And so that was really the idea of trying to make it a fleshed out world.
Right, because that way you don't have to worry about, you can establish your own rules and laws, like laws of nature, all that kind of stuff, without having to try to fit it into, like you said, like physics of the earth, or try to explain. Because if you notice, like the other Christmas stories have to explain, all right, how does Santa fly? Or
explain, it's like you don't need to explain that in this world, because it's just it's expected that he just does it. It's just So the getting into the science of the Christmas, it all and people always try to do that too. Like, they're like, I deduced that Santa Claus wasn't real because of this fact. Like, he could not. There's no possible reason he could do this. Well, on this planet, he could. It's a fantasy world, and there's really no rules to. I mean, there's rules that we set. Obviously, you can't have like an ultimately powerful character like come in and take everyone out or something like that. But I just think that having a fantasy world makes it. I don't know. It just makes it more fun. I've never seen that in a Christmas story before, I'll just say.
Right. There was a really good, and I was having this debate with one of my friends about, Santa and stuff like that. And I actually produced to him you can find it online. It was either MIT, I think it was MIT, where they did a doctoral thesis to prove through quantum physics how Santa could actually do everything we all think Santa does. It's actually a pretty fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because you did mention earlier too that, a lot of your inspiration of how you have your version, your take on Santa is there's a bit of like heroism about him. Like he defends the innocent, and some of your inspiration came from Narnia's version and Oz's version of how they portrayed Santa Claus. Is there have you seen like in recent any other versions of Santa that you mentioned, the Christmas Chronicles, new takes on Santa that you said, oh, I love how they did that, I wish I would have thought about that? Was there any other of those pieces that you've noticed lately?
I've heard that I heard that what is it called? The Guardians has a really cool version of Santa. I'm not sure what it is quite. I've never seen that movie. But this Santa, he's really, he's a fighter. He's the greatest fighter. He's the greatest warrior on all of Planet Christmas. But the only issue is that he's powered by Christmas spirit. Sort of like how, in what is it, The Year Without a Santa Claus, Santa, because there's no Christmas spirit, it doesn't want to go out and give presents to people. He feels like he'll just skip that Christmas, right? Well, it's kind of like that, but like 1,000 times with this Santa. He's just lost all his power because everyone is so busy fighting, they don't even understand what Christmas means anymore. I mean, all the Christmas spirit is gone. It's been taken and used for fuel. So basically, he's powerless. But Garrett doesn't know that, and Marie doesn't know that either. No one knows that he's really powered by Christmas spirit, which is why he is trying to leave and escape. But he's a really caring person, and even as we'll see, even without all of that, he's still, even without his power and literally on the brink of death, he's still giving to people still. And it's just the idea of just having a soul that is constantly giving. I think a lot of people don't understand that that's really the true essence of Santa, is just the idea of constantly giving. It's almost like Batman in a way, but less dark. Just unbelievable, like just every moment thinking about what he can do for others, never thinking about himself. And that's why Santa's fat. That's why Santa has a big beard and he's unkept, and he's he doesn't care about how he looks. He cares about you. He cares about other people. It's the constant, continual spirit of giving that is what Santa Claus is. And that can be giving in any way. It doesn't have to just be presents. It can be, and obviously in the case of Planet Christmas, he used to be a guardian. He used to really, when there was a monster that came, he would take it out, which we'll see in issue 2. Or when there's all these different threats, he would take it out. Or when there's a dispute, he would come and try to figure it out in any way he could. But that's what Santa Claus is. He is someone who just has a compulsion to give. And sometimes, it's a bad thing because he never gives enough time for himself. But I think that if you can hit that with Santa Claus, you have a great Santa Claus. And I think a lot of characters do hit that. I think some of them, like, I think the one in, like the Christmas Chronicles I mentioned, Kurt Russell, I think, plays Santa. And, it's fine. But I just think that I don't like the versions of Santa that they want to highlight his bad parts, or the parts, maybe the things that, for example, there's a movie with Mel Gibson out now that is about him killing people or stuff like that. I think the image of Santa Claus is so powerful that it doesn't work for me when people try to make him look like that. It's like feels kind of wrong. It's like kind of seeing like Batman with a gun or something like that. It's like, it just like shocks you. Like there's no way, so it's just, yeah, I don't know but that's my version of Santa. And I think that there's a lot of great versions of Santa that are, again, the compulsion of giving. I think that's the most important thing.
And you mentioned before, like, just like the name Bric-A-Brac came from kind of like, as you said, like an amalgamation of different Christmas traditions and stories and characters. Was there anything that you kind of had to leave on the writing room floor? Like, I don't have enough room for this. Was there any parts of it that you had to either say maybe someday, but I can't really fit this into the storyline right now?
Yeah, there's definitely, there's like a Good King Wenceslas character that I thought would be on the cutting room floor, but thankfully we were able to kind of fit him in, but in a different way. Also, I kind of thought that the Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future would kind of have to be on the cutting room floor too, but I kind of figured out a way that they could work. So they're kind of the narrators of the story, which kind of only makes sense because they have a foresight of what's happening at all times. So they would make a perfect narrator, and they're really silly in this, and they're kind of childlike, and they're younger, and they're different. But as for other characters that are on it, like I think we hit a lot of bases. We have a lot of, if we don't have a character that's you know, kind of like a flip on like a different character that's from the songs or Rudolph or these different things, we have a character that's like an archetype of that. You know, like for example, Scrooge can really be seen in our redemptive character Jack Frost, who really screwed up at, you know, who really screwed up and did a lot of bad things, and then felt remorse for that because a lot of his friends were hurt in result of his bad decision making, and now he's kind of trying to find redemption. And so that's kind of a Scrooge archetype. I would also say, you know, Good King Wenceslas is kind of an archetype of maybe like a kind of like a King Arthur kind of character who is trying to have like Christmas games for his knights, and, you know, trying to entertain themselves on Christmas night, and that kind of thing, and, you know, just trying to do these great deeds, you know, to entertain each other during their feasts and stuff like that, and kind of calling from the story Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which is, I think, a great Christmas story about, you know, a Christmas game. And so his story is really interesting too. But other than that, I would just say that I try to have a lot of the Christmas themes in this story. A lot of, if there's not the main character from something like I said, there's not a Rudolph, but we try to have like a character who is an outcast or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, I really didn't think there was anything I needed to put on the cutting room floor exactly. I usually found a way to put it in, which again speaks to the name of the story, and I think is also indicative of the idea that it's just a big fantasy world, and it's a journey story. Really. It's really, I think there's only several times where we cut away and see another group of characters, like whether it be the villains doing something else or talking about their evil plan, but it's largely us focusing on the journey of Garrett and Marie pretty much the entire time. So I guess, but yeah, to answer your question, I hope I did. There's nothing really on the cutting room floor. I just found a way to kind of fit it in, and if I really wanted to make this a story that hit a lot of bases that people were familiar with, but also switch things up a bit.
And you mentioned earlier about your, you know, working with Raphael, and so for any of those writers out there who are listening, asking, how did you find him? How did you were able to? How did that work? How did that work to wrap in Raphael into your project, into Brickerback?
So there's, like I mentioned, there's 3 collaborators on the project. So I'll just mention Tom first. Tom did this, the cover, the cover for this, and he's doing a backup story in the book. So it's going to be the interiors with Raphael, which is about 22 pages, and then the backup story. But I found him through an anthology. Right. So I would encourage people who are doing comics and producing them to put stuff in anthologies. Like, why not? First off, you'll have the Comic Vine page, which is great. And you'll have something on Comixology, which is cool. And you can share with people, and you get comps. So why not? But that's how I found him. So, and also you get to meet artists who, you know, you're in the book with them. They probably saw your work. So, so that's how I found him. And so we've done a lot of things together. We did a comic book called Cereal Wars, and we did a motion comic too. I found a really talented graphic designer to make a motion comic of our little 5-page comic, which is super cool. And you can find it on my YouTube channel. And so then Raphael I met on ArtStation, which I would encourage everyone who is a comic book anything. It doesn't even matter if you're a writer or artist or anything. If you're a letterer even, I found that ArtStation is where it is, where all the artists are posting their work. And DeviantArt is kind of a thing of the past. Instagram and ArtStation are really where I found, and this also speaks to every single artist from my comic book anthology. We've done 25 stories. That's 25 different artists I found on this site who are willing to just collaborate for free, just for fun, just to do a small 3-page story, 2-page story. So hopefully that is inspiration for people who are like, I don't have money. Well, there's people who want to collaborate with you if you are willing to write a script. And so I found Raphael through that too. And I saw his art and I was like, this is, like I said before, this is if there was a guy to tell this story, this is the guy. this story that's been in my head for like since I was like 4 years old. This is the dude. And then my friend Milton I knew for a while, and he did the designs for the logo and the interior designs of the book, and then he's also contributing a page to the backup story as well. And so this team, they're all people I've known for at least 2 years or something. So it just, and I've worked with them on the previous one. So we kind of are bringing everybody back for number 2.
And you mentioned in a previous interview, which I found fascinating, that you equated the artist as the director and you as the screenwriter. Now, as you as the creator, though, it's like you're almost like the executive producer in a way, is too.
Oh yeah, right.
So how does that relationship work? Where how much of that in the story in Brickerback issues 1 and 2 has Raphael said, "Hey, let's do it like this," or how much of his hand is in the story, the final piece of that?
For sure. Well, I think, I write a script completely, and then I usually strip it of the dialogue. Raphael is from Portugal. He's actually, sorry, he's from Brazil, rather. And so he is, English is not his first language. And so I usually strip it of the dialogue and kind of make it more simple. And he just always finds a way to make it more complex in some way. He adds these great details, which is, he's done work at DreamWorks and he's worked on all these different things. And he's just really, he understands what the tone I'm going for very well. He understands, because he's been there from the beginning. He did the characters 2 years ago. We were talking about the designs of the characters and all that. And he's really been with me through this for a long time. So he understands what I'm going for. He understands what we're trying to kind of, reference with certain things. And so, yeah, so that is basically where our collaboration works. Is I will give him a direction and he basically executes that, but adds more details. But yeah, the scripts are already written before that. But I think that again, he is the director. He gets to say where the camera's going to be, what the environment's going to look like. How are we going to look at the characters? What's the intensity of the scene? How are the characters' emotions going to look like? What are their facial expressions going to be? Which is huge. And given it's kind of a cartoony style, it's even bigger because. I think the characters they just emote even more in a more exaggerated way. So it's really his role is critical to really kind of selling this world. And it's just that his work is so eye-popping and eye-catching that it just immediately takes you there. I think there's no dissonance, I don't think. You just kind of, you look at his coloring style and his work and the way he draws the characters and you just kind of believe this world. Whereas I would say, if someone like Jim Lee were drawing it, obviously it would look weird. It would look like Alienoid, or it would just not look right. If someone like Gary Frank were drawing it, I just don't think it would look, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't pull it off. You couldn't pull it off. That's what I'm saying. So, just finding him, I kind of realized I could do this. This story can actually happen.
I mean, obviously, we were talking about issue 3 that being released in the future as well. So because this, as you said, this has been a passion project for you since you're very little. What's your dream with it? Is there going to be more of this, or is there going to be children's books or coloring books? So how much do where do you where's your dream heading with that Brick-A-Brac right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really want it to be, hopefully by this time next year, we'll be able to, my plan is to hopefully have a lot of the book done by October, launch for issue 3 on Indiegogo and then have that completed. Then maybe in November or December, launch for the hardcover or a soft cover or something like that. So people can collect all of it. And I want kids to be able to get it. I've said it before, but I don't think kids are going on crowdfunding sites trying to find books like this. It's not accessible to them. But I want it to be in a way that it is, because I want, just like how my mother read The Night Before Christmas to me, or Jolly Old Saint Nick to me, or these great Christmas stories to me with amazing art. I want it to be the same with this, but this just has fisticuffs and action, and really fun stories and a lot of Christmas mythology and new stuff too in it. And so I just think that I would love it to be a story that people read to their children on Christmas Eve, just like my mom read to me great stories on Christmas Eve, just like I sat around the campfire and watched, the Christmas Story with my family. I think that it's something that I would like it to be. But as for sequels, I could definitely see that happening, or toys. I want to make toys or this or that. I would love to do that, of course, but it's just about getting the exposure and figuring out how to do that. I want to finish the book first, obviously, before I try to do any of that, and hopefully get a publisher. And figure something out where we could distribute it when it's completed. So that's really the goal.
Yeah, and you mentioned in a previous interview as well that you that ultimately storytelling is the first form and like one of the main forms of art for us. And you mentioned too, it's storytelling is for entertainment and to learn. And so, I mean, what do you have, in this, when you look at all three issues in one, one big volume, do you want the audience or the readers to take away anything like a lesson from this as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the main idea is to see a character kind of go from his innocence, where he's hidden from this world, to really seeing what reality is and having reality hit you in the face and kind of see, how there's all this stuff going on Planet Christmas that is not what he thought. And then having to navigate through that and grow up and, find Father Christmas, hopefully, and, make everything right. And of course, things continually get complicated where either General Almond or his brother try to muck up stuff for them, or they'll start more wars, or, Garrett is largely this massive pacifist because he really doesn't understand war. And he's just seen his entire island, his only home, he's known, destroyed, like literally decimated. And so it's just really difficult for him and it's kind of equating, and it really deeply equating to what kids kind of go through. And I mean, probably not to the severe of an extent, but when they realize that Santa Claus isn't real in our interpretation of real. I think that obviously there's different interpretations of what real is with Santa Claus, but in the you can't touch him, right? And he doesn't come to your house. And when you learn that, it's devastating. And I think your outlook on Christmas does change. It becomes tainted in some ways. And of course, when you grow up and when you're the person giving the child the gifts, obviously it changes too, so there's all these different forms of Christmas that I think we're supposed to go through. It's almost like a myth structure in a way. And it's kind of like you go from this to this, and then you kind of are now the grandfather who's giving the gift, who's passing on gifts to the son, to this. It's a very traditional, there's so much meaning in Christmas. And it's probably why there's a lot of amazing stories during that time, because there's just so much meaning. And you can take out the religious stuff. Even you can take out just the imagery of Christmas, and you can look up at the sun and say, wow, okay, it's been dark for the last 2 months. Now suddenly there's a winter solstice and oh my God, it's light again. I mean, even at the very basic level, there is meaning in it. Like in the minuscule level, there's still meaning. And so it's just, it's a very meaningful time. So I think that is, that's why you can tell so many great stories there. But I would say the main story is really just that idea of growing up, and the idea of how Christmas changes when you grow up, and how do you maintain that goodness? How do you maintain that childish wonder? How do you do that? And I don't think a lot of people successfully do, but that's what the story is about.
And so let's talk about let's look at your Indiegogo, your campaign right now. 70 as of that's like almost 80% funded. You got over a week left, so this is exciting. This is not knuckle biting, no, nail biting. Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah, we had an amazing launch, but like then things kind of slowed down. But I do think we'll succeed. I think we will with a push towards the end. I do think we will. I think we'll get there.
Yeah. So talk to us about some of these perks here. Some of these are, I love this in Indiegogo is that you actually kind of have a featured perk that is right there on the top instead of based off of, like instead of being based off of like the high, lowest to highest. So do you want to just, talk through our audience a bit about what you have here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have a perk that basically it's what I kind of call the catch-up perk. It's basically you get issue 1 and 2. Issue 1 will have a variant cover, so it's going to be a second printing, and then you get the art print of Jack Frost and a bookmark. And then not only do you get the physical books, but you get digital versions of them too, so you can share it with your cousin or whatnot. And yeah, that is all for $24. So yeah, that and I've never. I usually included the bookmarks and the art print in a different tier, but I figured why not include it in this one just because, I have a lot left over from the first one, and I just was like, okay, I mean, I don't know what to do with these. They're just going to stay here, so let's just give them out for sure.
That's a great deal too. That is amazing. $24. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have some digital stuff for backers who, international backers always say, and I always say this too, it makes it easier for me and it makes it easier for them. They don't have to pay so much to get a book shipped to them, and I don't have to probably end up paying more to do it because that's just how it goes with international shipping. So always having the opportunity to do that is good. I want to give people that opportunity, even though I know people want the physical book. It's hard. But maybe when, again, like we were saying, maybe when the book is more widely available, it's possible. But these are the people who are the first, the people bringing it to life. So it has to be brought to life before it can be widely available. And then we have the physical book number 2 for people who, got the first one. So obviously you wouldn't want to get the worst one again. And so I obviously want to offer that one.
And how many pages is it, Ryan?
So this is going to be 30 pages. Like 30 pages. Issue 2 will be 30 pages, and then issue 1 is 30 pages, and so together it's going to be 60 pages.
Wow, cool.
And yeah, that's the digital. This time around, we also had a tier where you can donate 4 books to the Boys and Girls Club, so a chapter of your choice. Again, kind of embracing the Christmas spirits. And I didn't know that people would back it, but I'm really happy that they did. I think it's a cool, I saw it on someone else, whether people are giving books to the military, which you kind of have to have a very specific, you have to talk to some people for that. But with the Boys and Girls Club, it's a lot simpler. And so, yeah, that's kind of just it's just a cool perk that I think that people will, I think kids will appreciate, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. And then you have the double bric-a-brac. Is that kind of like a retail thing, or how is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just if people want to give copies to their loved ones or stuff, I just figured maybe I would just give people kind of a better deal on the 2 issues. I don't know. I mean, people do want to buy multiple ones every once in a while just because they want to give them away, or maybe have one that they're going to put in a bag and board, and then one that they're just going to read through, or I don't know. I just wanted to offer it just because I didn't want people to have to pay shipping twice.
Right.
So yeah, and then this is
revenge.
So this is named after the brother of the main the Nutcracker. His brother's name is Tchaikovsky, and he's kind of like a bumbling, goofy character that he's very he's obsessed with himself, and he's so different from the main villain. It's crazy. But anyway, this is basically where you can create a character with this one. So create a Christmas character. So you can kind of create a character in the background of the story. And then you also get a sketch from Raphael. So a sketch of a Brickerback character, one of the main characters. Usually he picks 2 and just gives those away. So last year we had our 2 main characters. This year we're probably going to do like Jack Frost and Good King Wenceslas or something like that. And yeah, then you get, again, book 1, book 2, the prints, and all that cool stuff that you could get before as well. Wow. So yeah, it's just a big tier. And then Become an Elf.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just someone wanted to put their likeness on an elf. And there's a scene where we have a bunch of elves, and I didn't want Raphael to just draw the same elves over again. Basically, the scene with the elves basically involves Garrett and Marie talking to these elves who, Father Christmas has left. And so they had to find a place of refuge. And so Garrett and Marie come across this place. And so that's basically where we have the opportunity to make people elves, for sure. And this last one is sold out, but create a Christmas character, but you can still get that with the sketch tier.
Okay.
Yep.
That's and I gotta say too, what was really really cool that you mentioned was that in a previous interview you mentioned that you look at crowdfunding a bit differently than some other people, that you see this almost as like a crowd building in a way, where you think if someone's going to be putting in something, have them be a part of the creative process, and that's where you have some of these levels on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that people are begging to participate, and I've said this probably on a lot of interviews before, but when people see The Mandalorian and they're upset with this character that was in it, that they're like, this character shouldn't be in it. People are begging to participate, and big corporations like Marvel and Disney don't let them do that, obviously. And they want to make fan art and fan this and fan this, or sometimes people even literally go out and try to correct the thing that they made, with like the phantom edit or whatever. And so I think that people have been begging to be in, collaborate, or begging to have their voices heard in a certain way. And this is kind of my way of allowing people to collaborate with the book. Crowdfunding gives you that opportunity to do that. And it's amazing because it's in a small way. Obviously, they're not like changing the story or anything like that, but it is a way that you can participate, and like how many times have you heard like, oh, this person is a secret cameo in Star Wars, and like it's a huge deal. So it's kind of the same thing. Like it's just giving people that opportunity to, I had one time it was a father who had like two little girls, and so he bought the tier, and they put their characters in it, and they were just so impressed when they saw what Raphael did. And Raphael is excellent at doing this. I mean, he just posted a picture of, he has little kids. He's older than me, and he has about like two children, and so they draw with their crayons, and he posted a picture on Instagram of him using their drawings and making them with his style, and they look amazing. They look like unbelievably like the characters that exist. And so he's just so good at taking, sometimes people will sketch a character that they want for it and give it to Raphael, and he'll make this amazing character. And so it's just a cool tier. It's something cool that people can kind of just get involved in if they want to create a character. That's awesome, And there's it being a war book, it being a book about all these factions fighting each other. It just only makes sense to give people that opportunity. So.
Right. I mean, have you ever had any emails or anything about any pro Nutcracker people who are like, they're not the bad guys or anything like that?
Sometimes, someone wants to be a Nutcracker. Yeah, so I think someone sent me, And the Nutcrackers, they're not inherently bad guys. I mean, in fact, they also used to work for Father Christmas, shockingly enough. They did used to work for him, and when everything was great. But the issue is that, of course, when you think you're more powerful than Father, or when you think that you've never gotten your comeuppance, like like General Allman never felt that he got comeuppance, or did. He's like, I'm a capable leader. I could do this. I have all these soldiers. Why can't I take on these monsters? Why does Father Christmas always get to? And so he's, by accident, he's given this opportunity to basically get resources for another planet on his planet. And he's like, all right. And he does get a little screw loose, and we get to see that in the backup story, how this all happens. But, they are being manipulated. A lot of these Nutcrackers, they're thinking they're doing it for a good cause. They're going to be able to inherit the planet and finally get their comeuppance, finally be able to really take over and be the leaders, which they feel they rightfully deserve. And so, they're definitely weird, and they have some, they're bad guys, but they do have, there is some sympathy for them, of course. They're not just inherently bad.
Mm. That's awesome. So, I'm really excited to read this. I really wish you too. So real quick, you have this book, as I say, it'll be out in February. That's when
Yeah.
the plan is February
Yes.
2021 is the physical
Mhm.
copies. So people can find it on where can people find this right now? How
Yeah. So
can they
it's
find your campaign?
Yeah, Indiegogo, Brickerback number 2, Indiegogo. Yeah, and that's all you probably have to put in to find it. A fantasy Christmas story or just Brickerback, and it'll take you there. I did have several failed campaigns, so just look for the one that's currently active. Yeah, because there's a graveyard of campaigns with this one because it was a struggle to get funded,
Right.
unfortunately. But you know what? That's okay, because I think it almost made there is buyer's remorse, and I think it made a lot of the backers really passionate about, because I was passionate about making the project happen. They wanted it to happen, and so it's been great to see that people really just want it to happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And where can people find you, Ryan, if they want to learn more about your writing?
For sure. So I'm primarily on Instagram at Ryan Haack _98. And so there you can find my link tree which will take you to the campaign, to my other campaign that I'm working on with my friend Milton, who's also collaborating on this Raptor. Unfortunately, we failed that one, but we're going to be relaunching on Kickstarter in January. And that's a superhero book that I wrote, and he created the character and drew it. My podcast, the Unspeakable Text webcomic, and then my films and all that stuff. You can find that on my Instagram.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Ryan. I had a fantastic time talking to you about Planet Christmas and Brickerback.
Oh, absolutely.
And all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to reading this and looking forward to issue number 3 as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's going to be a blast.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
So is that like a Christmas shirt that you're wearing? Is that
No? This is actually a shirt from the book. These are our 2 main characters. Yeah. Garrett and Marie. Right. Yeah, I actually just got these. Yeah, and then on the back it has the logo.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. And I was like, well, instead of getting a holiday themed thing, I'm gonna make my own. They're my very first shirts I've ever made, so they're kind of cool.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm gonna wear them. I got them as a gift for my parents too, and my grandmother and stuff like this. So I was like, I want my own, and so yeah, because I wanted to make them a tier, but they're very expensive. I wanted to test it out for next time because they're so expensive. So like shirts, especially if you're making a small amount of them, they're just so expensive, on these custom ink sites and stuff like that. So it was a test and also something cool to have.
Did it come out the way you liked it though?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is going to be the cover of issue 2, and yeah, the back logo is it's perfect. I love it. Yeah. Hopefully I can make more. Hopefully.
Well, that's actually better than doing the testing out the T-shirt than than like getting the tattoo of the logo on you or something like that.
Yeah. I think the T-shirt's better, right? Because